Hey everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime. Well, 'tis done. The jury has the case, and I'm not taking any bets on how long they will deliberate. I don't know. In preparation for this momentous day, I actually watched last night the classic film 12 Angry Men. Now, the 1997 remake with James Gandolfini, Hugh Cronin, just an all James, almost Tony Danza, Edward, just all-star cast, and the old one from the 1950s is great too with Henry Fonda. Don't get me wrong. Not that I think that this case is going to play out like that, but just to understand the kind of stress that a jury goes under, especially when something is like life in prison. We know that Vallow's not facing death, but with life in prison, it's just the momentous stress that's on them. And so in my mind, I was watching that movie, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Either version is great. It's just absolutely. I've been on two juries. One was a car accident where a lot of money was at stake, and the other was a child abuse case. Now, those were pretty easy to decide, in my opinion. But this one, I don't think there's any reasonable doubt who was responsible for these deaths. I definitely think it was Chad and Lori manipulating each other, and then in turn manipulating other people to get what they want, and that is each other, money, and then to continue to be this Jesus status. Do I think they really believe in their heart of hearts all this stuff, these delusions of grandeur that they've put themselves in? Yeah, I think they believe them in part. I don't think they believe them all the way. I think some of it is a grift, but yeah. But what we have to remember, putting all the cult stuff aside, putting all the manipulation aside, this is a case in which multiple people lost their lives because of the delusional dreams of two psychopaths. And that is Tylee, JJ, Tammy, and Charles. They all lost their lives because of these sycophants. And that is absolutely what has to remain at the core. Whereas 12 Angry Men concentrated on the fact that the defendant in that case was facing the death penalty, I think we need to face the fact that 4 people are dead. And I know they're only dealing with 3 of them in this case, this particular case, but that they are the ones that lost their lives. And to see pictures of Lori and the way that the East Idaho News reporter described Lori, I don't think she gives 2 shits either way. And please forgive me for cussing. I think she is perfectly content to live her life in prison and have 3 hot meals a day and internet access and probably access to another dime store coochie for herself. I'm just saying that I don't think she gives a shit. I don't think she gives a shit about what she did to her family, about what happened to Chad's family, about all this stuff. She doesn't care. And she's not crazy. She's just evil. And oh, by the way, I'm Tracy from Keto and Crime. I'm so sorry I went into this tirade. If you're new here, I don't normally start videos with a rant like this. I normally have a very, but I've been covering this case since it began. I've done so many deep dives on all the players. I've read all of Daybell's books. I've been following this case since day one, and I just have never been so passionate about a case. So if you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, go see it. It will help you get out some frustration. And let's talk about day 26 and 27. I'm not going to bore you with day 26 because it was a lot of arguing over instructions to the jury, specifically over what could be included from Arizona versus what could be included from Daybell's potential case. So I'm not going to bore you with that. I will, however, bore you with day 27, which was today, Thursday, May 11th, and closing arguments. The prosecution's closing arguments were presented by Rob Wood, and he did a wonderful job. He broke it down for the jury hand over fist. His first sentence, money, power, sex, summed it up. And he talked about how this really began in October of 2018 when all of this was set in motion, and to include 𝗏𝗏 and her family in this conspiracy to bring them out on top, get away with the money, get away with the 𝗙𝗀𝗃, get away with everything. Then a picture of 𝗙𝗍𝗃. She was burned and buried in 𝗂𝗍𝗪's backyard. Part of her body was dumped in a green bucket and buried in a pet cemetery on top of a piece of her skull. So she was out of the way, and we still don't know her cause of death because the body was too badly burned. We know that JJ died of asphyxiation. I have a feeling probably 𝗙𝗍𝗃 died much the same way. That's just conjecture on my part. Then he talks about JJ, with a photo of JJ, and how he was asphyxiated with a strip of duct tape wrapped around his forehead to his neck, and says that there's evidence that he struggled and then his heart stopped beating. This was a 7-year-old autistic child. And then how he was discarded in an area of Chad's property near a pond, and how 𝗏𝗏 continued to collect Social Security on both of them. And then we moved to Tammy, a picture of Tammy, how they attempted to shoot her one time and the gun misfired. And then they didn't, and then they later on asphyxiated her in much the same way that JJ was definitely asphyxiated, and most likely 𝗙𝗍𝗃, and how Chad and 𝗏𝗏 was able to collect $430,000 worth of life insurance, and they collected it immediately. Then he shows their wedding pictures from Hawaii, how they were completely unconcerned with what had happened. They were telling people there was no children. There were text messages and emails referring to obstacles. Her children were nothing but obstacles. They were all dark. They were all zombies. They just were obstacles to the end, and how they manipulated and brought Alex Cox in through manipulation of a religion he deeply believed in. And I'm not saying he's innocent. I think he's just as much of a MFer as these others. But we know that he believed it head over fist. Then he brings up the text referring to how close they were to being dark. Tammy was close. JJ is at a 2. 𝗙𝗍𝗃's at this. And it was just as simple as an arbitrary number that means nothing in reality to set in motion when they should die. These are human beings. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you have to convict. You must convict her, Wood said. There was a motive. There was proof through the movements and the manipulation. She lied. They lied. They all lied. And you must convict her. His entire closing statement took about an hour, and he just railed it in. Now, he gave it to the entire jury pool of 18. There was a lottery where it was, pared down to 12. 2 bailiffs were then sworn in to oversee the jury. All evidence will be in the jury room except weapons, firearms, and those can be brought in on request. And so he gives this impassioned speech, and then there's a short recess, and then Archibald gives his closing statement. And he presents 𝗏𝗏 as this poor, pitiful woman born in San Bernardino, California, which is a rough area of California, married right out of high school, all these divorces, all this abuse, all these people leaving her. And then who is Chad? Chad is a crazy theologian sycophant who 1 year after meeting 𝗏𝗏 convinced her to murder her family and others. Yeah. He basically, the summation of his entire closing argument was, poor, pitiful 𝗏𝗏. The prosecution has not proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and you cannot convict. And he talked about how extramarital sex happens all the time, how you have no proof of who killed who. He said Chad had gotten to a scratch fight with JJ. Maybe that's where all the scratches came in, that religious nuts are out there, and blah, blah, blah. But Lori was a good mother. But they're not presenting any of the evidence that Lori was this great mother. They're not presenting any case at all. And so that's his, basically, he sums it up. You have to hide from a storm. And he's describing Daybell as that storm. And then Wood jumps up with a rebuttal afterwards and basically hammers it in again. Says how he has more than met the beyond a reasonable doubt burden. And he's not saying that Lori wrapped the tape around JJ's mouth, but he's saying that Lori was directly involved and wanted the obstacles out of her way, and closes with pictures of all of the victims. And then after that, they do the little lottery for who will actually go to deliberate. The jurors 18, 1, 2, 17, 3, and 7 are sent home. They are alternates, so if anything happens and anybody on the deliberation side can't fulfill their duties, they will be called in. And they swear in the deputies that will be overseeing them, and they are sent to deliberate. And that is a wrap until we get the verdict back. And the verdict will be live streamed, so we'll actually get to see it. And as soon as I get the notification that that is coming down, I will try to jump on live. If I absolutely can, we'll do a live reaction. If not, I'll report it to you as soon as possible. I hope you've enjoyed coverage of this case. I hope I've made it a little more digestible than listening to hours and hours of recordings. A big shout out again to the East Idaho News for supplying the recordings free of charge. Anybody that donated to me to buy the recordings, there were a couple of you. I don't want you to think I took your money under false pretenses. So if you would like me to refund that money, I'm more than happy to. Just email me. My email is, if you go to the About section of my YouTube channel, there's an email. Email me. I'll be happy to return that money. Otherwise, I will use it to, for further upgrade equipment and stuff for the channel. And with that being said, thank you. And I will be back soon as we know more. And in the meantime, I will be returning to regular videos. I will have a couple of non-Daybell related videos coming out next week, and then we will return to our series on the Third Reich and Catholicism. And until then, 𝗙mě and 𝗓𝗏.